Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Blue Ox base plate on a 2022 Jeep Cherokee. Now this is what it's going to look like when it's installed, and to be completely honest, it's really clean looking. In fact, it takes away the factory red tow hooks here on this trailhawk, which is unfortunate, but it's nice that it uses the same spot because you're not going to have to cut any of the fascia in order for the base plate to go on. Now, some of your other components may require that, but overall, using those factory locations is really nice. And honestly, the installation really uses a lot of those factory mounting points as well, so it's nice and secure because that's where your tow hooks originally were. So it gives you a good peace of mind knowing that this is going to hold on the vehicle and be a solid attachment point for the life of your flat towing career. Now, while you're not flat towing, it does have that nice clean look, and when you are ready to hook up, it's going to be pretty easy here. We have our removable arms. We're just going to slide these in and just twist until that clicks into place, and now it's going to be nice and locked in. And to remove them, going to be pretty easy here. We're just going to pull this pin, give it a twist, and then they pop out. Now when you are ready to hook up to your tow bar, it's going to be pretty easy. This is obviously a Blue Ox adapter here, as some of your other tow bars will have a different connection point. So when you are picking a tow bar, make sure you get one with the Blue Ox attachment like we have here on our Roadmaster Nighthawk. So we'll just align the hole here, put our pin in place, and then just put our cotter pin in. Our safety chain loop is nice and conveniently located to keep it nice and clean here. It also sticks out just enough to where it's easy to get on here without bumping our front fascia, but also it's not sticking out too far to where it's unsightly. Then we'll get our diode wiring attached as well as our breakaway cable. And finally, if you are running air brakes on your RV, it'll attach your air line. So now we have everything hooked up. All that's left to do is get our vehicle in flat tow mode and then hit the road. Our installation is going to begin by popping open the hood, and we're going to take this plastic fascia portion off. This is going to allow us access to be able to get our bumper fascia off, and that way we can get our base plate in. So in order to do this, there's going to be 13 plastic push pins. So we're going to follow along here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a center one, and then it's going to be the repeat on the other side. So we'll go ahead and get these off. And to get the plastic push pins off, pretty easy here. Now I'm using a trim panel tool, but you can use a flathead screwdriver as well. There's a little slot here, just kind of pry underneath that. And once you get that top portion out, you can go ahead and get the bottom portion pried off. Now I highly recommend having a place to organize this. It's going to make installation of this a lot easier when we put everything back. With our plastic push pins out, we can go ahead and take our fascia cover off. So we're just going to kind of work it around. You can see these little hexes here. So just kind of work them around there, and that should make it a lot easier to take off. So go ahead, set this aside in a safe place for reinstallation later. With our fascia cover off, we're going to see that we have a T27 Torx bit screw. There's going to be one on each side, so we can go ahead and remove that. Make sure to hold on to that plastic washer as well. Now we're going to go to our fender well, and there's going to be 3 8mm bolts. So there's one up top here, and you can kind of feel in the grooves there's an inset. So we're going to get those 3 out, and that's going to allow us to get to the 10mm bolt that's up here. But we'll go ahead and get the 8mm out on both sides, and then we can gain access to that 10mm. Now, if it is hard to get into here, a trick that you can do is hop in the vehicle, turn the steering wheel all the way to the left or right, and that's going to give you that access to be able to get in there. I'm lucky I have a right angle 3/8 here, so it makes it easy for me, but if you're doing this at home, chances are you don't. So go ahead, turn the wheel, and that should be easy to get to. Now with the 10mm socket, you're going to want to peel back this inner fender liner here, and you're going to have the 10mm head. It's facing down, so it might be kind of tricky to get in there, but I think with a socket and a ratchet, you should be able to get in there and get this loosened up. We're going to head underneath the fascia, and you're going to see that there's a rivet on each side. It's kind of right here at the corner, right in front of the tire. So what we're going to do, we're going to be drilling this out. So just take a drill bit and just kind of drill out that center. And if it's still kind of just spinning around, a lot of times you can just simply pop that off with a flathead or a trim panel tool, and that should separate it. Now, once we get both of these drilled out, we're gonna go ahead with our 10mm socket. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll go ahead and get those taken off as well. Now we're getting ready to take the fascia off, so I recommend finding someone to help you. It's a lot easier with 2 people, as it can kind of be cumbersome. And something else I'm going to do for just a little preventative damage control, put a little painter's tape here along the seam where the fender meets the fascia, and that's just going to help when we put it back on. Sometimes that can rub against each other and leave little scuffs, so putting a little bit of painter's tape here right on the seam is going to help kind of give us a fighting chance to have a little more protection. Now, to get the fascia removed, we're going to grab on the wheel well here and just slowly work our way. Now, there's going to be plastic clips along the way, and it does take a little bit of pressure to kind of get them popped, but once you get one, you can work your way along, making your way towards the middle. And there is going to be an electrical plug that we'll have to separate, so if you get it loose, don't just pull the bumper back, because you're going to want to make sure that you have that unhooked. Now, it is kind of tricky to get this to pop out, and the reason being, there's this tab and it locks into the fender just kind of to keep it in place a little better. So when you're trying to get these clips, you want to try to pry this tab to where it unhooks from the fender, and you're gonna have to give it a little bit of force, and once you do, you should have your clips kind of pop there. And then, as I mentioned before, we're just going to work our way towards the middle and just kind of keep pressure on the next clip. You don't want to pull away too much, and these clips can break, so again, just it's going to take a little bit of force, but also just be gentle with it and kind of work your way through. And then as we pull this back, there is a clip here on this driver's side, and we're going to want to remove that. Now we're going to just pry back this yellow portion here, and then this red clip will slide out, and that'll cause that to unlock. So now we can go ahead and set this in a safe place, making sure that it's not going to fall over and get scratched. So now we're going to be pulling off our tow hooks, and our base plate's going to live right around here. And the way to do that, there's going to be a 16mm bolt on both sides of each tow hook. So we'll go ahead and get those 4 removed. Now, the tow hook has a 30mm nut, and that may seem kind of scary and daunting because you probably don't have a 30mm wrench, but really they're not too tight. Sometimes you can actually get them with your hand, but if not, a pair of channel locks, you just want to go and bite onto that, and then what you can do is twist the tow hook just a little bit to kind of get it moved. And once it's over the thread lock that's on there, this should come out pretty easily. So go ahead and do this on both sides of the vehicle. We're going to go ahead and get our frame extension, both of them on each side, removed, and that's going to be accomplished by using a 15mm socket. There's going to be 3 bolts here. We'll go ahead and get those off. Now, some models will have a nut here that's going to be a 10mm. Ours has a clip, and yours may as well. We can pry that off once we get these, or we can kind of just pull this back and it should pull that over the stud. Kind of wiggling this back and forth, that should give us a little gap to be able to get our clip, and if we need to, we can take a trim panel tool or a flathead here and just kind of pry this back. And if the clip breaks, that's no concern. We will not be using this for reinstallation. So now you're going to go ahead and grab your base plate, and they are side specific. There should be 3 holes on the outside. One of them is going to go over this stud, and your safety chain loop should be facing towards the middle of the car. So what we're going to do is take our existing hardware that we had, and we're going to bolt this up in place. There's also going to be the bumper bolt here that we took out previously with that tow hook. Now, before we put the hardware in, we're going to want to make sure to put a little bit of Loctite here, and that's just going to make sure that once these are torqued down properly, they're going to stay in place for the lifespan of the base plate. So go ahead and put a little bit of Loctite on 3 of these bolts, and then you also have this large bumper bolt as well. So just make sure that tab and that stud's aligned, and then we'll pass our bolts back in, and I'm just going to get these hand tightened in for now. So you're going to have these 3. And you don't want to tighten it too much. You want to be able to kind of move this around, and that way we can align this tow hook bolt up into our base plate. And when tightening down, we're going to be tightening down this bumper bolt first. But again, we're just kind of getting these hand tightened in to hold this in place so we can grab our tools. Now I'm going to go ahead and get these tightened down. So again, starting with the bumper one, we'll get this. Now we're going to cinch this down to where it's nice and snug, but we're going to go back with the torque wrench to get the proper torque. So as long as it's holding it up in place and not overly tightened, we should be okay. Now we're going to go back with our torque wrench now that I have them kind of tightened down. Now the torque settings on these are going to be the same, but when you get to this one, it's a different grade of metal. So just double check the chart that they have in the instruction manual for those torque settings. And then we'll just go through all of these, make sure they're torqued properly. And this is just going to ensure that the studs are not going to have too much pressure on them by being over tightened, but also that they're not going to become loose over time. Now, if you need a torque wrench, we have them available here at eTrailer, or you can generally rent them at an auto parts store. So now that we have all these bolts nice and torqued, we're going to go with the supplied hardware. We have also this large flat washer as well as a split washer. And this is going to feed in the backside of the base plate, and it's got a threaded portion, so this is going to really cinch it up to the radiator support. Now, to get into here, it might be a little bit tricky, so we have our intake tube here. I'm going to just go ahead and take this 10 millimeter off. Might give us a little bit more room to work with. It's kind of tight here to feed it in, but once we kind of are able to align it here with the back side of that tow bar, we should be able to get this hand threaded on, at least started. And we're going to go ahead and repeat the same process on the other side before tightening and torquing these down. So now we're going to get our safety cables in place, and really what this is going to do is prevent, if for whatever reason our base plate kind of gave way, it's still going to hold on to the frame of the vehicle. So that's really what I'm trying to do here, is not only attach it to our base plate, you can use this hole here, but also you need to wrap it around the frame so it's structurally going to hold it in place. So something to consider, this side, driver's side, is not too bad, but on the passenger side you do have a radiator hose as well as belts right there. So you want to make sure you're not going to have any clearance issues. This one I have some hard lines here, but once I kind of keep this in place, the rubber coating shouldn't cause any issues or stress on that. But again, try to make sure that you're not putting stress on any of your lines while attaching this as well. So now that we have those in place and it's out of the way of everything, really all that's left to do is get the fascia back on the vehicle in the reverse order that we took it off. But if you are doing the rest of the flat tow setup, which chances are if you're putting your base plate on, you will be, as far as doing diode wiring or your braking system, it's a lot easier with the fascia off. They have in the instructions that you can mount up your 6-pole bracket. I'm going to hold off on that because I want the cleanest look once it's all installed, and sometimes waiting till you actually have to fit that fascia back on can allow you to kind of set that up exactly where you want it. So we'll pick back up a little bit later and we'll get that fascia back on and we'll show you how that looks. Now I've gone ahead and mounted up our fascia and trimmed it out so it will fit not only our breakaway switch but also our 6-pole. It does come with a bracket and I was able to mount it up, and I just went ahead and used a little bit of extra hardware that I had lying around to bolt that up, giving it a nice mounting point. And that was a look at the Blue Ox base plate on a 2022 Jeep Cherokee.